All right, welcome back, people. This is the One of None podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dr. Andrew Ganong,
I'm the other host, Dr. Jonah Casella.
and we are back with another episode that we are super excited to talk about. Today, we are going to talk about obsession, obsession with your craft, obsession with your goals, and balance. I think this is a topic that a lot of people struggle to talk about, as is a lot of the other episodes that we have talked about so far. So we're super stoked to get into this one because I think I struggle with it on a daily basis. And I think a lot of y'all will too. And I know Jonah does as well. We want to provide you with some insight into goal setting and how to approach those goals with the correct mindset. And so, Jonah, I don't know if you want to hop into first kind of topic within this.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about being obsessed, we're not talking about letting go of the rest of your life and only thinking about this one thing, right? But we're talking about being obsessed in a way that it's like we keep going back to that you make it a priority. It's something that you're thinking about regularly and that you're fitting into your agenda, fitting into your everyday routine. And you have to be thinking about it. And you have to have some level of obsession with this goal, whether it's like we always go back to for us when we were in college studying the obsession of this dream of getting to the point where we're at now of being out, seeing patients, and living that lifestyle outside of school, or it's just a passion that you have, powerlifting, gymnastics, you name it. You have to have some level of obsession so that you are prioritizing it and putting the work in for it. And it's important to have that mindset kind of going into it. And it's actually something that him and I have talked about. I don't know if we end up hitting on this on one of the podcasts already, but it's that like do or die lifestyle sort of thing. I don't know how you phrased it before, but
Non-negotiable.
right. Yeah, it's non-negotiable. You're completely obsessed with it where it's an extreme priority, but it's not so much where you're neglecting other important things in your life.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that we all are obsessed, and we should be obsessed to a certain degree. Because if you're not, then are you going 100% all the time? And I say that lightly, 100%, not actually 100%, but are you giving every day your best effort to help you get to where you want to go? I mean, if we're going 50%, then I don't want my patients to get 50% results. I don't think you want your patients to get half a lens. Like it's a stupid analogy, but it's like, why are you even spinning the wheels? That's just going to result in worse results for you. So why are you even going 50%? Why not go 100%?
Right.
And I like the obsession behind it. I think you and I talked about lifting when we first started meeting, and you were like, this guy wanted to squat every day. That was to a degree an obsession. I was obsessed with the idea of developing a physique that I wanted to, as are a lot of probably our listeners who are good friends of ours, who love lifting, who love bodybuilding, who love powerlifting. If you're not obsessed with it, then you're probably not going to meet that. You're not going to go into the gym. Let's say you set a goal to hit 500-pound squat. I had a 455-pound squat. I wanted to do that for a long time. I'm not going to hit a 455-pound squat by squatting 315 for 2 sets of 3 every day, no matter how hard I try, and doing that same rep range. I'm not going to hit that every single. I'm never going to hit 455.
Yeah.
So you have to be obsessed with that. If you want to get bigger, if you want to get the promotion that you've been working for, or start the business that you, especially with starting businesses, if you want to start a business you've been having your goal set on for years and years and years, you're not going to get the money that you want out of it, or how far you want to get into the company, without having some type of obsession, right?
Yeah, there has to be a level of it for sure. If not, what's the point? And you're not going to prioritize it either. That's the thing. If you don't have, especially when you're just starting out doing something, whatever it is, if you're just starting to get your feet wet, you have to be all in. You have to be all in. And that's something that is kind of cliche. People say all in, all the time, but you have to be obsessed with it immediately. Mentally, more than anything else, is what we're kind of talking about. You have to be mentally all in, obsessed with this dream, this goal, whatever it is, or you're just not going to dedicate the time to do it. You're not going to take it seriously. So if you make it an obsession, if you go all in on something, then you're going to get it done. That's the bottom line to it.
Yeah, and you know what I think ties in really importantly to this is imagination and speaking into existence.
Yeah, I like
You
that.
know, you and I talked about being strong in our faith before. I mean, we talk a lot about that stuff. I think we mentioned briefly being strong in our faith because we just maybe people caught on to that just because we talked about church. But I think that's a huge part of it is, you know, following out what you think your life is supposed to be like, or what God's, you know, God's expectations for you are, and living out your life accordingly. But I think another piece of it is manifestation. And I think they can coexist too. I'm not going to go down that whole spiral of God versus like manifestation or anything like that. I think they can coexist. And I think that's a huge part of developing an obsession to something is speaking it into existence and imagining it in your head too, which creates the obsession. Because if I'm going back to the 455-pound squat or developing, you know, the best physique that you want to, you have to fantasize in your head about what you want and you attaining that goal. So I think that obsession comes from cultivating an imagination for it, and then knowing that in your head, you're like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And I think about that a lot. I think we all do that the night before when we set our alarms, you or me, when we set our alarms for 5 o'clock. And I know I'm going to the gym the next morning. I'm already thinking about how I want that workout to turn out. I'm not going blindly into it. I'm imagining what that's looking like, to the very exercises I'm doing, to me hitting the alarm in the morning, to me knowing the conversations I'm going to have with myself in the morning at 5 o'clock. I
Mm-hmm.
know what's already going on and how I need to navigate that.
Yeah.
So I think imagination is a huge part of the creating an obsession too, because it really drives everything, every
Yeah.
decision along the way.
You have to visualize it. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Like, for example, today I had my normal morning, go to work early, get in at work at like 7:15. Work starts at 8, technically there early, like always. And then I'm starting to think about, I'm getting all my charts ready. We've already talked about this. I know I'm going over this again, but get all my charts ready for the day, visualizing how this day is going to go based off of who's coming in for what's going on, and then thinking about how the work day is going to end and then transition into my afternoon or my evening rather, and how my workout and everything else is going to play into that. So today was a little different because we had my father-in-law's birthday, little dinner. It wasn't anything crazy, but I knew that was going to be at 6. I was able to get out of work a little bit before 5 so I could get home in time to put in a half an hour workout right before. So I knew that I had a window of opportunity there to capitalize on that. So I was visualizing what that workout was going to be. Now, ideally, what I wanted it to be was a leg workout, which I probably could have condensed it down, but I decided to change course on the workout, not doing the workout because that's a non-negotiable, but doing a different movement that day. So I actually posted about it today, and Andrew reshared it actually. But 25-minute workout, 100 pull-ups, bunch of arm movements, good to go. Boom.
Yep.
So like, off the dinner and then straight from dinner to here. So just visualizing how your whole day is going to go and, fitting in that, like what your obsession is into that schedule during the day. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Leading up to
And
this. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was thinking you too today. It was like such a busy day.
Yeah. Well, I have to lift after this because I didn't get it in before.
Exactly. But it's a non-negotiable.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, people, I'm not looking forward to it. I just had my student's last day today, so I still have a lot of paperwork to do for her to submit to her school, her PT school. So that's got to get done, which is probably at least an hour and a half. And then I got to hit my workout. So I'm getting it done. But nonetheless, me and Jonah were talking about this before and how we wanted to approach this talk, because I think people get a little antsy around the word obsession, and they say, "Oh, I don't think obsession is a good thing because then you're becoming selfish and then you're neglecting other aspects of your life." I'm going to argue against that, Because what person who has been incredibly successful, business, life, their body, whatever it is, who has not been obsessed? Do you think Elon Musk was not obsessed and created the wealth he did? Do you think the owner of Nike was not obsessed? Do you think Kobe Bryant was not obsessed and he was just 75% and he was content with that? And then people are going to say, well, these are the top performers in the world. Yes, there are the top performers in the world. That's why we're talking about them. They're not an exception. Like, they have the same work ethic that anyone else does. They're just obsessed with it and they made a name for themselves. Maybe your goal isn't to be Kobe Bryant or Phil Knight or Elon Musk or have the wealth that they have or the success that they have. But to any degree of having success, you have to be somewhat obsessed. These people that I'm referring to when we talk about posting on social media, all of the glamorous lifestyle and all the fancy materialistic things that people want to have one day. I think we all want to have a sweet crib one day. Everyone wants to have. I imagine when I walk on the beach, having a beach house. When I walk and do my walks on my beach here in Jacksonville, I think about and imagine what it would be like to have a beachside house. Now, I think that's normal for all of us, but I'm not going to get that, nor is anyone else who posts about having matching Benzes with their significant other. Are they going to get that through not being obsessed? And there's a lot of kids our age too that are crushing it right now because they're obsessed with it. And I think this is the most important time for a lot of people too. Now, a lot of our friends have families started already. Jonah just got married. I'm not at that point yet, but we're still incredibly young to start pursuing this stuff. And I think this is the best time to do it before your obligations increase even more. And not to say that you can't do it when your obligations increase, but I think this is an excellent time to capitalize on the
And just
downtime that you
yeah,
have
and
and
to get a
just
good
grind.
foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get a good
And
foundation down while you can afford it, the time to do so now.
yeah,
Before you have other stuff, other family obligations and things like that, where you have to prioritize those things a little more, but still making time, just maybe not quite as much. But yeah, get a right foundation. I totally agree with that. And I also think that, we're talking very surface level right now. And what I mean by that is, when we say you have to be obsessed, some people are at a point where they have never gone to the gym, right?
yeah,
Drew, I mean, like, or they're starting fresh. They don't know where to begin. Well, the obsessed part of how this plays in is that you have to do some research, just like with a lot of other things too that you're just getting involved with, that you're not super familiar with, but that you really want to prioritize and get done. You have to do the research, just like when we were first in college, lifting and things like that. We're watching other people that do this all the time. We're doing the research on different movements, why that movement, this tricep movement, how that works, this bicep, chest, whatever. Putting in a lot of time on the side, just to try to understand it. That's the obsession that you should have. Really trying to, know as much as you can about something so that you can make the most of it as well. And maybe I'm not wording that perfectly, but I think you get the idea.
I love that. I love that. And it brought me back in time for a quick moment. I was thinking about when you said that about analyzing those movements and doing the research behind everything. And I have vivid memories of my house in Wexford or in Bradford Woods, and we just had the one huge desktop computer, and everything's laptop. No one really has the desktops anymore. Um, but I remember just going on. It would be like 10 or 11 at night, and I would try and like hide the light so it wouldn't be obvious that I was up because I was trying to like be sneaky. And so we had these doors that would close. So I would close and I'd put my head real close to the screen, and I would watch videos of like Rich Piana and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Steve Cook was probably a big guy at the time when we were growing up. That was a guy that a lot of people idolized, Christian Guzman, all those
Mm-hmm.
guys. And at the time I was maybe 110 pounds soaking wet. I couldn't beat myself out of a wet paper bag if I wanted to. And and I it started with researching, and it started with idolizing these people and envisioning what I wanted. And I took pieces from each of that. And trust me, I'm nowhere where I want to be right now with my physique. I'm still always having an end goal in mind, and that should never change either. But it started with the imagination and studying it and just researching it as much as you possibly can, because we all start somewhere. So this is not for the experienced lifters. This is for the people who are kind of afraid to go into a gym. Maybe it's the first time you're stepping foot in a gym and you have no idea what you're doing. Try to research a little bit before. And I think what happens is you research and then you take a leap of faith and you go and step foot in a gym, and maybe you start with something minimal. But what happens is you keep doing that over and over again. Then you start to develop comfort, and then you start to ask for help. And we talk about compounding pretty much every episode that we've had so far. And that's a big piece of it. It's a compounding effect. So it starts out very little, but then you start with a little foundation, and it builds bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you continue to build off that big foundation. And then you have some ability to do more and more, and you feel more confidence in what you're doing. And that's how you build the obsession too. The obsession doesn't just come randomly one day to you. It didn't come to me and Jonah one day. We said, all right, well, we just want to start a podcast. Let's do it today. We had to do the research behind it. We've been talking about doing this for a while, and it's starting to build. And now we look forward to it every single week. And it's like, if we're not getting it done, then we feel like we're missing out.
Yeah.
And so, Jonah, do you agree with that?
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's not even necessarily in terms of the podcast missing out. Like, we feel like we're not going to get the views or something like that. We don't really care about that, to be completely honest. Of course, we promote this and we want people to listen. And we want people to listen, obviously. But I was thinking about that today because the last episode we released, hasn't had as many views as the first two. And I was starting to feel kind of bummed about that. And then I was like, why am I looking at this? Like, I'm just looking forward to talking to Drew and like just BSing about stuff that we care about.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is stuff we love. But no, I totally agree with what you're saying. You have to be obsessed and put the research in. Honestly, I'm just that type of person too, where anytime that I'm learning something new or I'm really into something new, golf, disc golf, climbing, all these stupid activities that I do in like my free time, in quotation, I get so involved in learning and watching and trying to know about every little minute detail of these things. I get so obsessed with it.
Yeah.
So that's just like the type of person I am. But I do all the research for it because I get obsessed. And that was for lifting too. And obviously that was for our careers as well. You know, there were certainly classes that we didn't want to have to take, like, I don't even know, like English or something that was kind of meaningless to our careers, right? But we had a lot of classes that we knew would matter, the bios, the chems, the physics, the stuff like that, that we took a lot of obsession and passion in getting it right. Like we said, we weren't just trying to get C's and pass, just try to get by. We're shooting for A's, we're shooting for hundreds because we want to know, we want to understand and know this. We're obsessed with this. We're passionate about it. And that's another important word too, that we can talk about, being passionate. That's kind of the same thing as being obsessed, but in a nicer way.
Yeah.
Because if you're so passionate about something that you're willing to put weeks, months, years of time into, you're obsessed with it, right? You would agree with that.
Oh yeah.
Like, you have to be, if you're so passionate about something, you're obsessed subliminally. And so that passion is so important. You have to really care about what you're doing too. That goes back to the mentality of it. If you're trying to set a goal to do a Ironman, you obviously have to have some level of passion for that, or else it'd be too easy to give up on it. So you have to get that in your head, that you have to really care about this goal, this dream that you have. That's just part of it, being obsessed, is being passionate.
Dude, you're about to hype me up so much. I just got so pumped up because I love, this is like the bread and butter. I love talking about this stuff. And this applies to so many people because you really hit on something, dude. When you talked about a temporary activity such as an Ironman or such as a bodybuilding competition. I don't want to make it all physical. Let's say you have to present at work. You have to present a lecture. You have to do something for your boss, or a big project is coming your way. You have to be obsessed with it. I think a lot of the way that people think about obsession now is there's one activity and they're just obsessed with it, like running. Running, there's like no end goal in mind. That's the way we think about those types of things, the longevity of our health. We don't think there's an end goal in mind. So it's easy to get obsessed with that stuff because it's a continuous process that you're always working on, you're always developing. Now, you can also get obsessed and develop an obsession for very short-term goals. I think that's a huge thing too, because it brings passion. Let's just say passion instead of obsession. It brings passion to what you're doing. So for those exams, it brought me back again to school with us. You know what we would do is Jonah and I would grind, and it was such a little task. We all went through it during school. We all had exams that we had to study for, that we had to get good grades on. That was, really important for us to pass the exam. But what we would do is you and I would get so obsessed with it that we would go way overboard. Like we would sit there and we would start doing things way beyond what we even needed to. And that's what set us apart, dude, was we were the top 1% of the class. So in organic chemistry, we were setting the curve, like making sure that like we were the ones getting the top numbers. And who cares at that point? It's an organic chemistry class. Does it matter at all? No, absolutely not. But if you create a short-term obsession with it, then that's going to produce the results that you want. So as much as we're talking about the long-term goals that we're setting for ourselves, like, getting bigger over time, which is not a short-term goal. Like you're not just going to get massive and then stop. I'm talking about the short-term projects, the lectures that you have to do, the big months at work where maybe it's a month of just absolute suck factor 100,000%, where you don't want to do any of that stuff, but you got to buckle down and dig your heels in and do the work for that month. Become obsessed with it. There's nothing wrong with that. And to that too, I like to call it productive momentum. If I have productive momentum in the work that I'm doing, I will have to cancel, or I'd like to cancel the things that could be disrupting that. So if I have a really good flow in work where I'm on top of everything, I'm really in good habits at work with everything that I'm doing, and I know that there's something coming up that I scheduled weeks in advance prior to this productive momentum, there's thoughts in my head of like, all right, should I cancel this? Because I'm on a good wave right now and I don't want to disrupt that. And that's super important because it compounds. Because who knows what an extra week of that productive momentum can open up the opportunity for. Yeah. And I've also done the opposite, where I've had a really solid flow at work and I ended up disrupting it by going out and boozing. And you know what happened? It set me back so much. So if I'm really crushing the gym and my physique is on point, I've been doing my diet, counting my macros, doing all that stuff, hitting my cardio, and I'm looking exactly how I want to. And then I say, I'm going to let up a little bit. I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit and then go and do something. And I go and booze for a weekend and I come back and I'm hungover on Sunday and I don't get the stuff that I need to done. Then my productive momentum is wiped. Yeah. And now I'm starting from square one.
Yeah. No. And I love what you said about, no, I totally agree. And I love what you said. That brought me back to, this is so funny, about setting the curve. Like I totally forgot that was something we used to always say.
Yep.
We always would, that was like our thing. We're going to set the curve. We're going to be the ones that get the 98s on this. That's going to be the baseline 100 basically. And everybody else is going to be on the curve after us. We're always going to set the curve. I love that. That was our mentality all the time too.
What did we used to what did we used to blast in our headphones, walk into the exams?
Oh my gosh. You're bringing me back now. It's the stuff I haven't thought about in so long.
I
I was trying to
know.
remember things from college the last few days, and I couldn't remember as much as I was hoping to. So yeah, remind me of this.
Yeah, so we would be up, like we would have studied so much to this point, and it's day leading up to the exam, and we've prepped accordingly to make sure that we were timing our studying correctly. Now, let me preface it by saying this was not all needed, but we developed an obsession because Jonah and I both had goals of what we wanted to do. Jonah wanted to go to the best possible school for optometry. I want to go to the best possible school for PT. So, in order to do that, we had to pretty much have a near 4.0 the entire time that we were at our school, our undergrad. So, we did take them very seriously. And so, what we would do is we prep our time, our study days in a row, and make sure that we were hitting them the hours we were supposed to, getting through all the content leading up to the exam. And then, day of, we would both shoot each other a text. We'd either link up, we'd get up at like 6 o'clock, we'd meet at the library. No one would be at the library because it's like a Friday morning or a Thursday morning. And we would go through all of our content. And then Jonah would leave to go head over, or I would leave, and we would both just blast like Eminem or some hype music and start to cultivate great thoughts in our head about how the exam was going to go.
Yeah,
And
I remember this now.
not to say that it didn't, not to say that it went well every single time. There was definitely times where it didn't go as well as we wanted to.
Oh, but like
But that's
90% of the time.
right.
Easily. Not probably like 95 or more percent of the time,
Yeah. And
honestly.
that's part of the obsession
Yeah,
is that every step of the process is meticulously thought out, and what we were doing prior to that to get ourselves in the headspace to execute accordingly the way that we had planned it. And
absolutely.
I love that stuff
Yeah.
because people can look at that and be like, dude, it's not that big of a deal. It's an exam. Well, guess what? That's probably why Jonah got into the number one school for optometry and I got into the number one school for PT, is because you create those obsessions. Now, not to say you had to be a 4.0 student and have all of the accolades and everything that you wanted to in college to get into those schools, but that was our goal. It wasn't anybody
Yeah,
else's, whatever.
that was our
Everyone
personal
else can have their
agenda.
own goals. That was our goal. And that's what we set our sights on. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
And so there is a way to this stuff, and there's a mindset to it, and it's okay if people don't agree with it. You don't
Yeah.
They don't have to. You don't have to ask for permission for someone to agree with you. It doesn't matter. Who cares? It's your goal, no matter how big or small it is. Become obsessed with it, because
Yeah.
that creates a really great process for executing accordingly, and then you're prepared.
Yeah.
So
That was something that we were always on top of, was
yeah.
having a plan. And that actually made me remember what our routine used to be like, which you basically just said. But it would be several days. Unless it was finals week and we had multiple exams back to back and we're prioritizing how much time is spent on different exams, especially with like optometry and PT school was definitely like that. But we would allot days worth of studying for an exam. And kind of going back to what we were saying earlier, and what he was saying earlier was that it wasn't as if we just did the bare minimum to memorize the topics, just memorize and regurgitate for the exam. We were answering the why behind everything. Okay, I understand I get that that's the answer, but why? And then we were deep diving into topics, into the material that wasn't being covered, and looking things up online outside of what was taught in the class, because we were obsessed with it. We wanted to understand it. We wanted to know the why. Having that obsession was so key. We would be doing that for days leading up to an exam. The night before, we'd be hammering it all night long. And then we'd get back, wake up the next morning, meet up if we could, if they wouldn't have class or something else, go over it again. And then it was, in my mind, how I always thought about it was game time. This is why it's so important mentally too, to be that prepared, because going into my exams at 10, at 9:30 or whatever, 9 o'clock, whatever it is, I'm done studying. I know that I have put in as much work into this as I possibly could have. The work is done. Now it's game time.
Yep.
And it would almost be exciting for me because I would be like, I have put in everything I could into this. I'm so pumped up and ready for this. I'm going to crush this. I could not have done any more work. And that was the feeling that I wanted to have every single time I went into an exam. And I did, because I just knew that it worked. Now there was trial and error to that because the first couple exams in college didn't go that well. So we had to kind of learn and figure it out. But yeah, headphones in, blasting, grinding by NF, Eminem, stuff like that all the time, getting hyped up to go to take an exam. I know it sounds so dumb, and we're not giving these examples because you should be doing this if you're in college or something like that. I know it sounds dumb to people to be getting hyped up for an exam or something, but look at this from a very superficial layer. Take away this. When you have a goal or you have something you're trying to accomplish, or even like he's saying, a work related thing, a presentation, whatever, prepare, and then in that preparation, be obsessed with it and have a lot of passion for it. Because then when it comes time to that, when it comes time for that presentation, for that race, for whatever, you're going to be excited because you know that you have put all this work in and you're passionate about it and you're obsessed with it. And then you can enjoy it. And that's the other thing you should think about too is, and Andrew kind of alluded to this, it's not always about the big goal. I want to get huge. Well, that's kind of, you're going to be in it for a long time. So understand that you're not going to reach that goal necessarily, maybe even ever, if you're in that mindset, you just want to keep getting bigger for the specific example. But within that goal, pick out the little things, reach the little steps. You're leveling up till you get to that big goal, whatever it is. You have to be passionate about it. You have to enjoy the journey, like everybody says. Ultimately, the finish line is important, but if you're not passionate about it and enjoying the process along the way to some extent, then is it really worth it?
Yep.
Are you really
Yeah.
going to prioritize that and get to the goal, essentially?
Yeah. And for people out there, I don't give a whole lot of lectures. I'm not presenting a whole lot, but for some of the listeners that are in different fields than us, that might be a regular thing for you. So my aim for you is, think about it like this. The way that Jonah and I thought about walking out of that exam was, okay, I gave it everything I had. I studied every possible thing. And when you walk out of exams and you're like talking to people like, hey, what did you get for this? What did you get for that? Usually those are the people, and I know I used to be one of them, but those are the types of people that probably weren't as prepared as they could have been. Because usually when you've like exhausted all of your options and all of the resources you have, you walk out of there saying like, I'm not going to sit here and nitpick. Like I gave everything that I could have had and all the effort I could have put forth into this exam or into this presentation. I was prepared to the fullest degree. There's nothing I could take back. There's no point in rehashing all the details of it. I gave it everything and I'm done, And I think a lot of test takers probably feel that too, was like, because you're counting how many you can get wrong to get a certain grade. But if you've prepared as much as you possibly can and you're aiming for 100%, you're not going to sit there and nitpick, And that's another thing. And Jonah, this made me think too, was when you were talking, that I want to touch on, shout out Hannah for this, was balance is BS. Balance is BS, because what it creates is a false sense of security for you. Like, oh, I've grinded really hard this past week. I deserve to just let it loose and go and do whatever I want to for the next week and a half. Or I really put in a lot of time over the past 2 weeks. I think this is an okay time for me to go home, relax, and not do anything. Maybe go out and booze quite a bit for the weekend or the next week. That's an excuse for someone who does not want to continue to push the gas in. And when we're talking about obsession, whether to the slightest or fullest degree, balance is ultimately BS. And now, that being said, there's going to be people saying, oh, we need to be careful about that stuff because balance is important. I agree. It is important to a certain degree. I'm not saying don't go home and neglect your wife or your kids or doing the most important things that are fundamental to maintaining healthy relationships. I'm not saying that. But for a period of time, you are probably going to have to cut out a decent chunk of your time to put all of your effort into these goals, or else the obsession's not there. And I can speak from firsthand experience. There were people with me during my PT school experience that really struggled with the idea of how much work I was putting in. And I didn't talk to some people for that time because I was so focused on pursuing the maximum education that I possibly could. And some would say it was harsh. I would say I was just driven, and it created good habits that I instilled into my life now, and the ones that I still keep to this day. And it was a short term. Now, short term, I'm using a 3-year time frame for a short term. I'm not. Some would say it's probably long term, but I'm using 3 years as a short term time frame because ultimately it was going to change. Once I was a clinician, I could not let loose, but I could step back a little bit and say, all right, now it's time for me to focus on my career and start to put more effort into the other things that I'm really wanting to that I haven't really been able to. It's not bad to put things on the back burner. I'm not saying with your health, but I'm saying, maybe it's okay for you to not go and play 3 hours of video games after work and using that time poorly instead of doing it and putting it towards another side hustle that you want to. I mean, I have tons of stuff on TV that I probably would watch. And I know Jonah and I both love Good. So we would both sit there for probably hours if we could, watching Good videos and chilling and spending an hour and a half, 2 hours in the gym if we could. But we have priorities and we have things that we need to do. So take it as you will. Like, there's going to be certain levels to the obsession and ultimately balance too. And that goes along with the productive momentum I was talking about. It was like, if you're in a good flow, don't disrupt the flow. And that's awesome if you can control that and understand when that's coming too, and start to really dive deeper into it, because that could give you some really good traction for the upcoming weeks and set you potentially 10 steps ahead instead of
Yeah.
falling 3 steps behind by having an off weekend where you just go and booze and do whatever.
Yeah. No,
So
it's definitely a good point.
yeah.
Well,
So I think that's a good grip on obsession or
yeah.
passion, if you will. And
Yeah.
I think it's something that we all struggle with, because how do you take your performance to the next level? How do you take your side hustle to the next level? Well, it's not going to come from going 50% on
No, you
one
can't be
time.
you can't half-ass big things like this. You just
Yeah,
can't. But yeah, that's
big or
a lot
small.
about, yeah, that, to kind of like sum things up with that, that's what we're talking about: passion, obsession, whatever word you want to use to describe essentially the same thing, to make it easier for you if that bothers you. It's whatever it is. Just if you have a goal in mind, you have short term, long term, whatever's coming up, and you want to do well, you want to perform well, you want it to go well, you have to have passion, you have to be obsessed. And that's the bottom line to it, without
And
obviously neglecting your family or work or whatever. Just common sense here.
yeah, and even to that, I just want to rehash that: creating an obsession over things that seem meaningless to other people, if it's important to you,
That's
don't.
all that matters.
Yeah, that's all that matters. And it could
Yeah.
be a big or small goal. So that's
And
what's
the
going
less
to set
people
you.
that understand it probably that should solidify it for you.
Yeah,
If people don't necessarily understand, like Andrew was saying, why are you spending all this time studying all the time? There you go.
exactly. Yeah.
That's what you want. Why are
Yeah.
you running a marathon? What would make you want to do that? I don't even want to run half a mile. Yeah, that
Yeah.
feels good.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's all you need. Like, and honestly, those are the people. I think I used to kind of get a little bit more frightened of those conversations because I used to care so much about that. And
Hmm.
maybe that's why we love doing this so much. Is like, people are probably saying, oh, I don't know if I want to expose myself like that, or there's people that are going to judge me if I do this. I don't really care, to be honest with you. No offense. I just don't really care about your opinion. I'm going to continue to do what's important to me.
Yeah.
And what I want is for I mean, Jonah and I are getting obsessed with this because what we want is we want to put out the stuff that's worked for us and the stuff that we're working through so other people can hop on it with us. It's a winner circle. So
Oh
we
yeah,
want people to grow with us too. And we want people to use what has worked for us. I will ask you any day of the week, if you are really good at something that I am interested in, I will ask you, I don't care how below me you are or how above me you are. Wherever you fall on the spectrum, I don't really care. I just want to know how to get there. And that's the whole idea behind this pod is like, we just want to put that out there so that people can resonate with us and they can say, yeah, I've been through exactly what Jonah and Andrew are talking about, or that's actually huge. Let me use that and put that into practice in my life. Or
because remember,
yeah,
we're everyday guys. We are
exactly.
everyday guys. We're not
Yeah.
millionaires. We're a year or two out of school practicing, but we live in apartments. We're not million. We're everyday people. So
I
we
probably
experience everything the same thing that everybody else does. That's why this should be easy to relate to some extent. And if you can't necessarily relate to it, like he's saying, take something from it.
yeah.
That's the goal here. And that reminds me also, because we're just trying to help as many people as we can and also stay motivated and motivate each other. We just started a Discord. It's One of None Nation. So you can hop in, anybody can join that. And we'll post what we're doing, workouts, whatever, motivational stuff, blah, 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 all that sort of thing. So join in, become part of the community, and we can all motivate each other and complete our goals, our obsessions.
Yeah. So I also did not touch on this in the beginning, which I should have. We wanted to thank everyone for being so awesome and promoting our stuff and pushing it out there. We have a lot of people, a lot of our friends that are reaching out saying that they love it and that it really resonates with them. And we're super stoked to be able to push this out there. Ultimately, we want to help more people, whether it's one person, whether it's 100,000 people. We want to help people, and we want to help people develop better mindsets, growth mindsets, success in the workplace, success in your personal goals. So we are super grateful for everyone that listens to us.
Yes,
Just to
thank you guys so much.
Yeah. And we're not doing anything crazy right now besides just pushing it on social media. We got our Apple Podcasts up. So go look up One of None Pod or podcast on Apple Podcasts. We're on YouTube now. Go run up the YouTube, subscribe to our stuff. We're posting the videos on Spotify and YouTube. We don't have videos on Apple Podcasts. And then, yeah, let us know. Let us know if y'all want to hop on the 75 hard thing. We want people to hop in on that. It helps create a good community. It holds accountability for everyone. I'm still working through limiting my screen time. I have been down significantly. If anyone was wondering if I was holding myself
I've
accountable,
been
I
thinking
am.
about it. Every time I pull up my phone, I'm like, okay, I said I wasn't gonna, I'm not doing this right now. And I set
Yeah.
it back down.
Yeah.
Also, I've been thinking about the 75 hard because, like we said last time, that wasn't something that we really talked about. Andrew didn't ask me to do it. He just brought it up, and I'm not gonna let him do it by himself. So I've been mentally thinking about that already and visualizing what that every day is gonna be like, and just getting it in my head ahead of time because I know that it's gonna suck probably in a good way. It's gonna be
Yeah.
tough to make the time to do that, but I'm already visualizing that and mentally preparing for that.
Yeah. And last thing I'll say, I promise, this ties in very nicely what Jonah just said to our previous podcast on managing your minutes. Visualizing can also do great for your time management skills because you know what you have to get done throughout the day. And 75 hard is not an easy challenge. You're doing a lot of different things. You have to be really well managed in your time and efficient throughout your day. And for a lot of the folks that are listening, you have full-time jobs that you're working. So you got to think about how you're going to effectively use that time. Listen to the last pod if you don't know what we're talking about, and try and dive into ways that you can increase the efficiency at which you do things throughout the day, whether it's decreasing your phone time, going to bed a little bit earlier so you can wake up earlier and you're not miserable. Your productivity can be still on point too. So that's it for us. We
Yep,
appreciate y'all so much. Hope
that'll
you
do it.
find value in this. We love talking about this stuff. So there's plenty more
Yep.
of this to come. Tons of episodes coming.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Seriously. We
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
Yeah. So be on the lookout for the next pod. We're going to be posting once weekly at this rate with the uploading of everything. Could potentially be twice a week at times. Depends on how quickly we're putting stuff out and when we are finding the time for this stuff, which we are prioritizing the time. Let me correct myself and say
Yeah.
prioritizing the time. So,
Yep.
but expect about one time a week. Follow our pod or our Instagram account. It's One of None Pod. And yeah, thank you all so much.
Yeah.
Be back with another episode soon.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Love you. And we'll see you next time.
Yep.